Hello everyone, first and foremost a few words regarding the future of the channel. Going forward I will be posting videos in English only. I reached the decision with a bit of a heavy heart as I would like to continue being a bilingual channel, but at least for the time being it is an unsustainable solution and an unsustainable form for me. I hope I will be able to post a video in Polish now and then or on something related to the country, but most videos from now on will be aimed at English-speaking audience. With that out of the way, and as I have mentioned in the last video, today we are going to talk about various alleged alien races or species visiting the Earth and described by experiencers of close encounters with such beings. Let us start with what is likely the ultimate classic, the image which is most commonly invoked when mentioning aliens these days. One of the, if not the actual first mention of the beings known as small greys was a part of the alleged abduction story of Betty and Barney Hill, which took place in 1961. The couple returning from holidays was reportedly abducted by beings which the abductees described later under hypnosis. According to their description, the beings were not human in nature. They were diminutive and stood at perhaps 5 feet tall at most, and wore what was either a uniform or they had a peculiar-looking bluish-grey skin. They reportedly had eyes which could look directly into one's soul. Betty Hill was also shown an image of shining points, which was later identified as a possible star map. When overlaid on the physical star map of the sky, the map indicated the key location as the binary star system of Zeta Reticuli, located almost 40 light-years away from the Earth. While the story presented by the Hills propelled the image of the small grey aliens into the prominent light in ufology, there were reports of similar beings earlier chronologically. Bodies of similar beings were reportedly found in the Aztec UFO crash of 1948, and this report was also likely conflated with the Roswell incident of 1947, which is now commonly reported as involving dead grey aliens who were present on board the craft which had crashed near Roswell. The imagery of the grey aliens was further popularized by the book Communion, written by an experiencer Whitley Strieber and published in 1987 as a non-fiction piece. The same beings were also reported in 1998 in France and rooted themselves in the French-speaking UFO community. The 1990s saw the rise of the alleged links between the small grey aliens and the New World Order conspiracy theory. In 1995, a video presenting an autopsy of a possible grey alien was leaked, but was proven to be a fake video. However, the creators of the video mentioned that they based it on an original video which showed an actual autopsy of a dead alien being found in one of the crashed UFO. Small grey aliens are probably the species or a race most frequently reported by the experiencers. They also seem to be behind the majority of alleged abduction cases. A prominent feature of these reports are the eyes of those beings, which they seem to use to exert mental influence on the abductees, while they perform various procedures on the abductees. And while there are psychological explanations behind the sightings of those beings in traumatic situations, they are explained as memories from the earliest childhood of a newborn perception of mother's face. People who came face to face with the beings are more than likely to confirm, however, that these beings are real and exist in flesh. Others think that the small greys are not exactly extraterrestrial, but possibly interdimensional in their origin, that they may be time travelers from the future and our evolutionary descendants. This theory was popularized thanks to the alleged interview with a captive grey alien held by the American military, a link to which I will post alongside with this video. There are at least two interesting curiosities related to the small greys. The famous English occultist Aleister Crowley reportedly contacted an extra-dimensional being. It called itself Lamb and was drawn by Crowley in a report from one of his occult rituals, which we can see on the screen right now. The drawing seems to present a being roughly similar to the grey alien image which is widely known. Some people claim it is just a hallucinatory impression recorded by Crowley. The being seemed to be cold and computer-like in its intelligence. Another curiosity involves the Nazca mummies found in 2016-17 in Peru and widely presented to the world last year, which seem to bear some semblance to the stereotypical image of a grey alien. Short stature, humanoid build, fewer digits than humans have, and so on. Speaking of morphology, the grey aliens are usually reported to have 3 or 4 fingers on their hands and between 3 and 5 toes. They are often reported to smell horrendously, emitting a smell similar to that of ammonia. The reasoning some propose says that as the beings seem to lack the typical sexual and excretory organs, they expel waste through their skin instead. The height of those beings in reports varies from anywhere between just over 3 feet or 1 meter to almost 5 feet or 150 centimeters. Another feature related to the small greys is that they seem to be more frequently described as being malevolent, although possibly unintentionally, than benevolent, and that they seem to be drone-like, possibly linked into what may be a hive mind linking those beings. Rumored autopsies and other leaks from people who allegedly worked on biological alien material claim that the small greys are not exactly alive as we usually think of the term, but are possibly bioengineered beings and maybe just biological vessels for either consciousness of the actual aliens, thus making them just biological avatars, or that they may be a form of a biological AI. And while outlandish, these claims could possibly explain why UFO crashes involving those beings, according to the reports, are very rarely followed by any kind of a search and rescue operation carried out by similar craft. In addition to the claims already presented, experiences have reported over the years that there seem to be at least 2 and possibly 3 different types or species of the grey aliens. In addition to the small greys standing at 3 to 4 feet, we also encounter tall greys, as said, standing at about 5 feet. And while the smaller greys seem to be more robotic or drone-like, the larger ones seem to be more independent and self-reliant, possibly in charge of the smaller ones. The alleged third type of the greys may come from a different location. It is also not too unusual to hear about the grey aliens having a slightly different, greenish or even reddish hue to their skin, with the latter variety being reportedly observed in Brazil and in South America in general, including the famous Virginia case and possibly the Maggie case. It is also worth noting that beings similar to the greys, dubbed little people or ant people, are a part of the folklore of the Americas, from as far north as the modern southwestern US to the southern Brazil. The second most popular and best known type of alleged alien beings is the so-called Nordic alien. They bear the name as they resemble the stereotypical image of the Scandinavian people. The Nordics are tall, taller than humans on average, and by approximately 6 inches or 15 centimeters. Most of them have pale complexion, blonde, golden, or even white hair. There are instances of Nordics with darker hair and darker complexion as well, although these are relatively rare. People who have experienced and met the Nordics often say that the race seems to be at least neutral and often benevolent towards humanity. Malevolence is likely rare and seems to be as rare as the counterpart of explicit benevolence observed in the Greys. They seem to be extremely spiritual, to the point some people see them as magical beings. Personally, I would not be too surprised if some potential visitations in the past could be mistaken for angels because of the visual descriptions of this particular alien race. While the Nordics seem to be capable of speech, they prefer telepathic contact, and while they do so, they communicate in a language understandable to the human they talk to. The rumored writing of the tall whites seem to resemble Egyptian hieroglyphs. They also seem to be a long-lived race, and once they reach adulthood, they seem to be visually locked at what a human person would look like between 27 and 35 years of age. Some experiencers claim to have been aboard the crafts piloted by the Nordic aliens and being taken for a tour of the solar system. There has been at least one example of a military meteorologist in which a human being made friends with a Nordic family after helping a child of this species out of a thorny bush and befriending the grateful parents. The messages conveyed by those beings indicate some form of care for humanity and or perhaps for the Earth as the whole ecosystem. Some people claim they guide our spiritual development and help us become better people, less focused on violence, greed, and generally materialistic attitudes. Other alleged involvement of the Nordics, sometimes pointed out by the experiencers, includes genetic manipulation of our own species, perhaps assistance with lifting us on the evolutionary pathways. Since we look quite similar, some people also posit we may come from a shared evolutionary lineage. As we know, Homo sapiens DNA carries genes from at least one unknown ancestor yet to be discovered, so it is easy to see why claims of the Nordic involvement with us are even a thing. When it comes to their origin, the most frequently place indicated in space is the Pleiades star cluster. Personally, I find it a little odd, as Pleiades are a very young star system in general, and life developing to that level in such a cosmically short period of time is not too likely, but then again, who knows? Other locations I have heard indicated by the American Admiral Byrd, who toured Antarctica in the 1940s, claimed that these beings, matching the description of the Nordic aliens, were residents of a secret city located under the ice sheets of the Antarctica. Other rumors also claimed that these beings have cooperated with the Nazi regime, which could contradict their generally described peaceful and rather non-intrusive nature. In part 2 of the video, we will take a closer look at a few other alien races.